Now, without further delay, I'd like to turn today's call over to your first speaker, Chuck Tomasi. Chuck, you have the floor.
Hello and welcome to TechNow, the web series for ServiceNow administrators and developers on a wide variety of Now Platform topics. My name is Chuck Tomasi, Senior TPM at ServiceNow. I am joined with Kreg Steppe and Stacey Bailey and are really happy that we've reached this milestone to bring you the Madrid platform features. This is episode 61. As I mentioned, my name is Chuck Tomasi. Quick introduction for those of you who don't know me. I am a senior TPMM with the Now Platform, lots and lots of experience in the industry going back to the Stone Age or Bronze Age. I can't remember which one. It's been so long. I've been a customer for a couple of years, and since 2010, my main focus has been on the Now Platform, implementations, professional services, solution consulting, all around building custom applications, integrations, and the platform in general. And since 2013, we've been doing this series, so there's lots of content out there. If you want to go mining through that, we have a link at the end of the show. I won't dwell on too much more of this, but there's lots of community content that I get involved with, and live coding happy hour videos. I got to say I love my job, and this is one of the highlights of doing this each month is bringing you this content. So with that, I give it to Kreg for his introduction.
And hello, I am Kreg Steppe. I'm a program manager over at Cloud Labs, which you've probably heard me drone on about from time to time on this show, where I provide a lot of the training infrastructure in the back end. So if you've taken any of our classes or attended any of the labs at Knowledge, I do a lot of that work in the background to make this instance spin up. And I have been specializing in cloud automation and orchestration at ServiceNow in the past, and this is what I do now. So I've been at ServiceNow since 2014 with prior experience in, like I said, professional services. And I've been a co-host of TechNow since 2016. And I enjoy podcasting, photography, and Linux, not necessarily in that order. And on to Stacey.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stacey Bailey. I'm a program manager in the training and certification department. I've been a customer, partner, and employee of ServiceNow, working with the platform for the past 9 years, specializing in platform and domain separation especially. So I'm honored to be here, and we've got a great show today. So I'm going to leave it there and move on.
Go ahead, Kreg.
Oh, so today, I'm sorry, I was expecting you to pop back in there. So today we're going to talk about our quick tip, which is the name value pair field. And we're going to go on to our main topic, talking about the Madrid platform features. So if you haven't heard enough of Chuck, you're going to get your fill today. And then, of course, at the end, we'll see if we can do a little question and answer, which we'll be trying to answer some of the questions as they pop into the Q&A box in the panel right there, as you see it on your screen. And some of those we'll try to answer as we go, but other ones we'll answer some towards the end. So coming up, before you know it, we're going to be at Knowledge, which is in May. So Knowledge 19 is coming really soon, May 5th through the 9th. And again, it'll be here before you know it, believe me. As we've talked about it, seems like it was just last September, and now here we are sitting in February. So you want to go check out some of the agendas and the schedules. They're starting to show up on there. Pre-con registration is coming up very soon. And, I'm sorry, my slide disappeared. Where'd it go? Oh, well, there. Threw me off. Anyway, so it's a great opportunity to not just, network with everybody, but there's a lot of great labs, a lot of information. And if I'm not mistaken, we'll be doing some certification stuff there. So if you're interested in doing some training and getting some certifications, you can check that out too. And a lot of these panels, besides the official training, they're not just by ServiceNow employees. There are a lot of the customers that are doing this too. So you get to some insight on maybe some of how they handle certain things. So it's a great opportunity for networking and, like I said, hanging out with others, they also use ServiceNow. And speaking of hanging out with others, how they use ServiceNow, this is the service. You should visit the ServiceNow Success Center, especially if you're starting to implement ServiceNow in your enterprise, trying to get a direction on how to handle things, how to implement it. It's starting out with anything can be intimidating, especially something as deep as ServiceNow can be. But you're not alone, and that's what the ServiceNow Success Center is for. It's a great resource to get you on your way for laying the groundwork on your path to ServiceNow, and it's designed to get you to that return of investment quicker, because as soon as you start using it, that's exactly what you're going to see as a big return on your investment and start realizing the benefit of having ServiceNow around. There are links and resources all over the Success Center, taking you, if you're looking for anything from employee workflows to IT workflows, best practices. There's case studies on there. And I think the cream of the crop there is the Success Navigator, which will ask you some questions and start laying out a proven way of rolling out ServiceNow to your company with action plans, due dates, and so on. So be sure to go over and check out the Success Center. And as you're trying to build on that success, we have the developer site, which you can get your own ServiceNow instance to go play around with and just experiment, see how things work, find out how different apps work in ServiceNow. There's free learning plans. You can look at the scripting API documentation. There's developer meetup information over there at developer.servicenow.com. I'm used to putting that dash in there. The blogs, you can share content, and there's videos all over that place. So be sure to go over and check out the developer site if you haven't already. And now, on to our quick tip.
All right, thanks, Kreg. So our quick tip comes from the community. This is something we started a few months ago to bring you just a small piece of ServiceNow for developers and admins who may not recognize a certain feature that we find useful, or one of those where Stacey or Kreg or I go, I thought everybody knew that. Well, not everybody knows that. This is going to be about name value pairs. And if you watched our Jakarta platform video, you probably recognize this as being mentioned real quick. But this is a new field type that was introduced in Jakarta called name value pairs, and it was originally introduced to keep track of REST API headers. And since then, I've been looking for use cases to use this, and I wanted to give you some ideas because, we all deal with headers, of course, when we're doing integrations via REST API. You can see there the accept and content type in there. And I want to give you a little bit of how it's used in a script. You can access these either as dotted notation, as you see in the first one. I think it's line 4 or 5 in there, rec.nv.accept. You can reference these directly with the value, or if you've got something in the name part, like content dash type, the dash is going to throw JavaScript for a loop. So you can use the bracketed notation on the line you see down below, and it will store those into a JavaScript object. And it actually stores behind the scene. It's storing this content in the field value as a JSON string. So when it pulls it out, it makes it all nice and valuable. I love the visualization on this because that's why I've been looking for a way to use this. Typically, I'll say, hey, I need to store some complex data in this field. I don't want to make 15 fields because it's a variable depending on what I'm doing. I might have 3 names with 3 values and something like that. But what I found when I was doing a Todoist integration was I wanted to keep track of what is being changed, because that meant I needed to keep track of how the response was handled when Todoist said, oh, yeah, I got this updated. So here you can see an example on the left where the text or the assigned to or the date may have changed, and in this case you can see that it was clearly an assigned to. Well, the action that comes back from that integration was different, and rather than creating discrete fields, because I may change my mind and say, hey, I need a 6th one. I don't want to make another field. I just want to throw it in this JSON and have it done with. The other one could be almost like a choice list where you see on the right of red, green, blue, white, yellow, that kind of thing, and use that in your data model. I've passed this to Service Portal, and it works out really, really great. My latest one will be debuting at Knowledge when we're in the CreatorCon Developer Theater. We're going to be playing ServiceNow Jeopardy. I have built a Jeopardy, the popular game show, built a Jeopardy application on ServiceNow. And I needed a way to keep track of what is the question that's currently on the screen so that the host can ask the question and verify the answer. At first, I started out with a string field and put the JSON in there, and I said, Chuck, you idiot, just turn that. You can turn the string field right into a name value pair, and it actually interpreted the JSON that I had in there and visualized it like you see here perfectly. And then later I went, oh, I want the amount on this card. So I threw that in the JSON string, and it worked fine. So very, very flexible, easy to use. Look for use cases where this would be helpful. So I highly encourage using the name value pairs. Well, let's get into the Madrid platform features because that's why you came here, right? Well, first I have the poll question. We want to know, when do you plan to upgrade to Madrid? And in some cases, some of you may already be on Madrid. When do you plan to upgrade your production instance? Let's put it that way, because upgrades can be, days, weeks, month-long effort, depending on what your testing and your cycle time is. You may be waiting a month or two for a patch or two to come out. You may decide to skip right over and go to New York. So,
hey, I don't see last week listed there. That's when I did it.
Well, you're already on Madrid then. You're good to go.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So we'll give everybody a minute or two to answer that. And hopefully by the end of this webinar, you may want to change your answer and say, I want to go now. Sign me up. So I think we've given a fair amount of time for the, 1,200 or so people that are watching this. Thank you very much for joining us, by the way. I recognize a lot of customer names, and I recognize some of the names at the customers as well. Hope to see you all at Knowledge, by the way. And our results are, some of you are already on Madrid. Many are waiting 4 to 6 months. Interesting to see those results. Well, let's see if we can slide it a little more towards the green scale by the end of this. I don't know that you can go back and change that, but thank you very much. We will be using that very, very shortly. The first topic is Mobile Studio. Now, I am giving a caveat on a couple of these that we will be covering them lightly here because they are bigger topics than we can fit into this 1-hour session if we were to put many of these together. So for Madrid, mobile application, Mobile Studio, those will be covered more in depth in our next session on March 19th. Stacey is putting together the material right now. Very exciting stuff. Look forward to hearing from her on that. But what I can tell you about Mobile Studios, this is a game changer when it comes to mobile. This gives the experience that people are looking for because with the Madrid release and our Mobile Studio offering, it allows anyone to build and deploy native mobile applications that provide that mobile-first experience. And this, of course, unleashes greater productivity and convenience for the employees who want to work anytime, anywhere. You know the type. You're like me where you got your phone with you 24/7. Mobile Studio is integrated and part of our Studio offering. So with Mobile Studio, you can easily configure no-code packaged components and templates, leverage fully integrated native device capabilities like maps and the cameras, that kind of thing, stuff that's on your phone that you would normally get at. You can run these apps anywhere, connected online or offline. And my favorite part is you don't need to learn an SDK for Android or iOS because I never went to school to learn that. So again, we will be covering more of this in the March 19th episode of TechNow. So sign up for that as soon as we announce it. I think it might already be it was on the social media. Look for it on LinkedIn. Follow me, and you can find it there. The next one is Agent Workspace, and I know we mentioned Agent Workspace in London, at least I'm pretty sure we did, and it was what we called limited availability. Well, with Madrid, this is now fully available in general availability. Everybody's got access to it. The new Agent Workspace was really created to provide agents with a modern user interface that brings all of the information they need to work on a customer issue together in one place. That's the important part. You can kind of see from this screenshot that it's got multiple tabs and helps you do that. This improves their efficiency, speeds up learning, and enables agents to provide a better customer experience. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want, right? Especially as the customers, we want to get on and get off that call, get our problem resolved, get our question answered. The new workspace design is based on extensive customer input and observation. We went to customers and said, show me how you're working in the existing standard UI, and went, okay, that needs tweaking, and this could be improved, and that's what we put into Agent Workspace. So those customer pain points where that you had to open multiple tabs and switch between screens, and by the time you got down to the CI or the user or something, the incident was no longer on your screen, and if you open multiple tabs, there were issues there. It really wasn't the best solution. So Agent Workspace, of course, allows you to access multiple records, interactions, incidents, chats. The chat queue is in here. The inbox shows you that. I'll tell you a little bit more about how that inbox is handled in the next slide or two. Next slide. That's the one. There's a heads-up ribbon across the top to view critical incident information, such as key user details, the timeline, and SLA achievement. And on the right-hand side, we've got Agent Assist, which provides contextual knowledge across knowledge bases, community, service catalog, and social Q&A, enabling agents to respond more quickly. As far as chats, the workspace has been totally redesigned to incorporate a new Agent Workspace layout and enables agents to handle multiple chats simultaneously. Very, very cool, because many of you can do that. I don't know if I'm that talented. In addition, of course, Agent Intelligence uses machine learning to detect major incidents or find similar incidents that can aid in resolution. Agent Intelligence, there's an asterisk here, it does require a subscription to ITSM Pro. So talk to your account team, your account representative, if you want more information on that particular feature. We've also added advanced work assignment. Think of this as super assignment rules. This is way better than assignment rules, as a matter of fact. Advanced work assignment allows incoming work to be represented as service channels, which you see on the left of this diagram. It includes chats, cases, incidents, walk-up queues, and each of these are considered a work item. Then the routing rules come in. And they do things like such as contact VIP or associated CIs to define the route items to their respective queues. Not sure what happened to that slide. The queues are a little whacked in the middle. Something must have happened when we imported that. So I apologize. Those should be little tubes that say product chat or billing chat or VIP or critical cases. So you'll have to visualize those tubes.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, they're stacked, and they should be kind of separated.
They all fell down, I guess.
Right.
I will have that in the PDF that's attached to this in the community. So if you want to see the slide the way it was originally laid out, you can see it there. So the queues are simply buckets of work items that belong to a service channel. They prioritize the order in which the work items get assigned to agents. The assignment groups come along, and based on things like availability, capacity, you could say, Kreg is a rock star and he can handle 5 chats at once, but Chuck is a newbie. He can only do 1 chat at a time. So you can start to divvy and allocate, and if Chuck is not available, it will go into the queue and people can assign it, and it really is a wonderful, wonderful way of doing taking the intake and getting it to the right people. If you've got existing assignment rules, they remain in place. You don't have to worry about this conflicting with it, but you encourage you to take a look at advanced work assignment as an option for the way that you work, and especially if you're dealing with lots of different input streams and outputs. So now I get into Flow Designer, and you see that little green box that says, hey, guess what? We're going to go deeper into this in the future. Our April webinar is going to be all about Flow Designer and IntegrationHub. So those are the two. I'm going to gloss over the features just so you're familiar with them and what they do. And the underlying message here is this brings us closer to parity with the existing graphical workflow. So if you've been waiting for that, this is your day. Flow Designer enhancements, we've got this thing called decision tables. Now, decision tables allow you to define the business logic decision-making separate from the workflow. As I've preached on many a video before, the best way to reduce maintenance on your application is to make it data-driven. Think of this as the data to a flow. You could have a separate, different process. It reduces. Currently, decision tables are designed to work with Flow Designer decision trees, which I'll show you in the next slide. But I suspect that they will appear elsewhere in the platform in upcoming releases, much like what do we have now? Lookup tables do similar things, but lookup tables have a different set of parameters around them. So I suspect these will be coming up. Let me take you through a use case. Consider purchasing a car. The finance team may have a set of rules that can auto-approve a loan, for example, but these rules may change every month, perhaps. I don't know, and I don't care. I'm not in the finance team. The sales team doesn't really know what these rules are, and they don't care either. They just want to know if the person has been approved or not. So Decision tables offer the finance team the opportunity to define and maintain those rules separate from the workflow that drives them. For example, an applicant's age, credit score, and price of the vehicle, for example. If they know what these three pieces of information are, they can update the rules as often as they want without having to update the flow, making your job, this is the important part, easier. Less maintenance, less development. Let's take a look at how those would be used once they're defined. You simply put down the action on your flow in Flow Designer and say, I want a decision tree. You pick the finance one, for example, and it says, great, pass me the three parameters, driver's age, vehicle price, credit score, whatever it is, and it goes off and decides, is this part of the auto approval one, auto rejection one, or there's an otherwise check button. So those of you who are programmers know about switch statements and default cases and catching those exceptions that didn't get caught by something that was explicitly defined. You can check that otherwise button and say, well, if it wasn't auto approved and it wasn't auto rejected, we're going to do a manual approval instead. You could set something like that up, a scenario such as that. So decision trees are very, very easy. You can even see I threw in some subflows on there so that I don't have to keep repeating the same task. I use the approval subflow to modify the trigger record, for example. That's one scenario. We've also added another looping construct. We've had the for each when you do like a glide record lookup and say, for all the records that I found, go through and iterate through them. The problem with that is there's no way to do it at least once. So do the following in parallel is fall into this loop, do the actions at least once, then check the condition. Where is this handy? I like it for integrations, for example. You can run the integration once, and you may, in fact, get a bad result back, a 404, for example. Hey, we didn't find your result. Wait 5 minutes, 10 seconds, whatever you want. You put a timer activity in there, roll around, do it again until you hit a positive result. Obviously, you probably want a watchdog in there as well that says, hey, have you tried this 10 times? Because after 10 times, I'm bailing. I don't want to do this for the next 52 weeks while you try to get this integration going. So I'm sorry, I am talking about the complete wrong slide here. I saw one thing and did the other.
I was like, what are you looking at? I was trying to follow along. I was like, what are you looking at? Okay.
I glanced at the screen and I saw the diagram. You'll see how close these look. But this actually looks very close to the, all right, apologies. I was doing the wrong slide. Do the following in parallel, allows you to do parallel tasks. When all the tasks are done, then it moves on with the flow. There's the loop.
Yeah.
I've already talked my way out of that one. So
okay. That makes more sense now.
You gotta stop me on that, Craig. Come on, 14 years of working together. We should be better than that.
I know, but I was sitting there looking and going, what is he talking about? This makes no sense. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Hey, Chuck, wrong slide. Chuck, hello,
yeah.
Bueller. So do the following until, loop through at least once. And I love the fact that we're getting more programmer-type concepts in here, but they're not written for programmers. These are written for no-coders. There's no coding involved in here. We also have the run as. So now that I'm on the right slide, we've added the ability to run the flow as a user who initiates the session or as the system user. And up until this point, all the flows have been running, of course, as the system user. If you want to know who has run this, you can check the event log and look for the event flow.start, and you'll see in the created by column who actually ran it. You can see I ran a few tests on flows that I started. We've got some advanced trigger conditions. So we've added some options to the trigger. When you set up a flow, you say, when is this supposed to start? Start when a new record is created. Or we've also, before Madrid, the options were run it once or always, which, depending on your use case, you may want either of those. The run trigger field now supports another option to run if it's not already running. So if you've got an approval that's already being run, or you've got an integration that fired this thing off, you may already have an active context, and you only want one running at a time because a second would give you false results. You can do that. You can also set the flow to run as interactive, which would be for people at their keyboard running a browser. There's a human logged in here, or non-interactive for things such as integrations, or both. Of course, both is an option. You can also, I love this one, you can whitelist or blacklist users who can run the flow. So I could create a flow that says, Stacey can run this flow, but Kreg can't. And he could do the exact same operation to trigger that flow, but it goes, oh, no, you're in the blacklist. Sorry.
Hey, that's for those people that double click on links instead of just single click. You know, you don't want to run twice.
Be nice.
Yeah.
There are some apps where I'm not sure.
That's true.
I think Craig's calling me out on something, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of calling, we recognize that customers have a lot of investment in legacy workflows. And we don't offer a conversion tool because architectures of the graphical workflow engine from 2008 and Flow Designer from 2017 are vastly different. There's really no upgrade path because the constructs are different, the inputs are different. We offer the ability to now use the flow logic where it says call a workflow. And you can see you pass it the current record and away it goes. So you can leverage those workflows that you've got. And, of course, the context will be kicked off and all that other good stuff. We have a timer activity. Hooray, pay attention. It requires a duration field. So you can't just slap in a date field. It will say, that's not the right time. As Flow Designer would do, it pulls it out and goes, no, you can't drag that data pill. It's the wrong type, or it's even grayed out. So duration fields only. This, again, is useful. Let's take that scenario where we're doing an integration in our do until loop, and the integration doesn't pass. You could say, wait 60 seconds, or wait 5 minutes, or wait a day before you try this thing again. Put in a duration, either hard-coded as you see here, or a data pill that you can pick. So very handy indeed. That's one of my favorite activities that I learned about a couple of years ago from the old workflow. IntegrationHub, again.
Oh, yeah. The wait.
Let me pause real quick before we go any further. Are there any questions?
Yeah, let me see. There was one in here.
We had one that's a pretty important thing while Kreg is looking there. When is GA for mobile or for Madrid?
GA for Madrid, if my brain
March 6th, I think.
Is March 6th. We have a launch event on that date. So watch more videos. There's a big social media blast that's gone out. Dave Wright and Brad, I don't want to mispronounce his last name. He's my new boss's boss. I gotta be careful on that one.
Yeah, don't mess that up.
But they will be doing the launch event at that point. Matic, thank you.
The other question, I think I've got a lot of questions about the Agent Workspace, and I wanted to know, is it included out of the box? But the Agent Assist feature requires ITSM Pro.
Is what available out of the box?
Agent Workspace?
Agent Workspace, I have to check. I think that's installed with ITSM or CSM as part of those plugins. I don't know that's the standard platform feature yet. I'll double check on that. It might even be
what about the Agent?
Agent Assist is a separate licensed product, so that's going to have a different plugin available to it. And much like any other pay-for plugin, you got to get that. I have been corrected also. Thank you, Brandy, who's working behind the scenes. The launch event is on the 13th.
Oh, okay. I knew everything's happening in the next couple of weeks for the most part.
GA is the 6th. Launch event is the 13th. I apologize. The dates kept moving around, and my brain can't keep them straight. I have been focused on February 26th is the TechNow. So.
Yeah. After this, you got to reset and start paying attention again.
It's the next deadline next week. Flow Designer and IntegrationHub, I want to point out that we do have an API for actions. And I am going to build this into one of my CreatorCon labs because I want to use this. I want to see how it goes. You can start flows. You can start an action. I thought this was interesting. You could drill right in and say, I've defined this action to maybe trigger an integration or build a payload or something. And you can trigger that action from the server side, either synchronously or not asynchronously, and the client side. So these are all documented. You don't have to write them down and memorize them. They're documented on the doc site as well as the developer portal. So I am looking forward to using those. And if you can't remember what those APIs are, we've got a code snippet generator that has been added to those. So when you're designing your action, You can use the little code snippet menu on the side and say, hey, what is the server-side code snippet for this? Much like the REST API Explorer offers you those code snippets in Python, Perl, Ruby, ServiceNow, etc., you can get a code snippet generator to accelerate your development process. I love that. We also support the password to field, which if you try to drag something, the reason that there's a nice big red error message is because someone tried to drag the password to field into a log message. No, you cannot print passwords. They're encrypted. That's bad. You're going to get garbage anyway. What's the point? So we stop you from doing that. So if you've got an integration that requires a password to field, you can definitely use it there. It's just exposed as a data pill like everything else. Of course, it's a password field. We've added a SOAP step to the Action Designer because we know that you have integrations that use something other than REST. So now you can do SOAP. Seeing a lot more level playing field with the old workflow here, Kreg?
Yes, I do.
We've also, remember the name value pairs I showed at the beginning? They come into play with this thing we call the Payload Builder. So this is an action step. And like I didn't mention this when I did the name value pairs, but they are good for flat name value structures only. You can't have a nested array of objects which have objects within them. That's not where this pays off. But this will save you a lot of typing and potential human error when you're creating those JSON or XML payloads. You simply put in, here's the name, here's a value. The value comes from a data pill, and it constructs it like that. There's a little more step-by-step here where it looks like the left side when it's configured. And one of my favorite things is the omit if empty checkbox. I'm working through an exercise right now. It does not have this. Unfortunately, I can't use it because I have a nested structure. And you can see if the zip code is empty in the runtime values, the final payload doesn't have a zip because that could, in fact, impact your integration downstream.
That's very nice.
The zip code blank. Yeah, I love this.
As long as you're not expecting a nothing on the other end, you could just omit it. That's very nice.
Right. There are some integrations where they say, oh, I do want a nothing. That tells me not to update it. But other integrations I've seen where if you have nothing, it will send it to nothing, and that's not good. We've added the AD spoke for Active Directory, so you can manage things like computers, groups, users, objects. This is very, very helpful. We've added the Azure AD spoke as well, so users, groups, licenses, passwords. There's actions for a lot of that stuff. I'm giving some quick screenshots of what those look like when they're in place. I don't have a screenshot.
I did see Office 365 groups in there as well.
You did indeed. Of course, SCCM, for those of you that are doing that, managing your applications and your deployments, your devices, your user collections, that's all. We've got a spoke for those actions as well. The Slack spoke, I am happy to say, because one of the most common questions I got in the last release was, can I create a channel, add people to it, and then post a message? With Madrid, the answer is yes, you can. So that's the answer I like to give. So management of channels, notifications, and users. And then you go, well, where did the post message go? The post message is now under the Slack webhook spoke with a couple other actions that you see there. So remember you had to put in the webhook to say what channel you want to post to. Very easy to do. So don't freak out when you don't see that. We also added one that I spotted just in the quickest of videos that has no other context to it. And I went, I'm taking that screenshot. And the attachments actions are in the ServiceNow core. So copy attachment, delete attachment, that kind of stuff that you do on the sys_attachment table are available here, which I think is really pretty cool. A great way to do a very common action. This comes up all the time in scripting. Well, guess what? You don't need to do any more scripting with Flow Designer. You just implement this action. You say, here's my source record and ending record with a data pill or whatever. You could implement this for doing things like templates. I love it.
Yeah. Actually, wheels are turning. That's pretty good. In my head, I'm already thinking, where can I use that?
You do the exact same thing I do, and I'm hoping that most of the listeners and viewers on this are doing the same thing. Like, where could I use that? How does this make my life easier? We are giving you new tools for your toolbox to be more effective.
I just hate it when I see something and go, oh, I could have used that 5 years ago for this problem.
Well, I get that all the time.
Yeah.
All righty. Any questions before I go on to the next section?
Is there an Octaspoke?
Is there an Octaspoke? I haven't seen one yet, not in Madrid, but we also have a bunch of other spokes that are coming out around Box, DocuSign, lots of other things that are coming out in the pike. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see an Octaspoke soon. That would be really nice because having done some Okta administration in my past, I would love to have that.
I would keep an eye on the store for additional spokes coming out throughout the
That's true too.
Oh, great idea. That is a great plug for the store as well. Thank you, Stacey, because none of this precludes a partner or even the share portal. I've still got plans to contribute a few very fundamental things like increment a number. It's not in Flow Designer yet. So if you wanted to do that do until loop and iterate 10 times, you got to write 3 lines of a very simple action, albeit, but it's 3 lines of script, and then you can repurpose that. All right. On to notifications, because our notification team hasn't finished yet. Just when you think they've done everything, there's more they come up with. And like the other ones, I'm going to offer you a teaser here. This will be our June content, more about notifications, particularly the email client that I'll show you. It's like, what? That little envelope icon got some love? Yes, it did. I know that June seems like a long way away if you're watching this as it's recorded in February 2019. It's not. It'll go by. It'll be knowledge, and then it'll be June, just like that. What did I see today? 67 days or something till knowledge? It's getting really scary now.
I know. It's not much. Well, it's almost 2 months.
Yep. We have added the ability to read multiple IMAP and POP3 icons specifically in parallel with email account groups. You can configure this. Read the documentation. Make sure that this is right for you. Don't just go, hey, I'd like to read multiple accounts. It is designed for a very specific use case. You may, in fact, want separate accounts for your customer service management versus IT, for example. They may be sending mail to a totally different account rather than just help@servicenow.com, your instance name here. You could be checking email accounts that way as well.
Yeah,
yes.
So reading from multiple IMAP accounts, that would also be helpful, I guess, if you were implementing like event management and monitoring a mailbox.
There you go. Yep,
Yeah.
Lots of use cases where you may need multiple email accounts. We also offer the ability to configure the email account group with the email accounts that you want in the group. So there is a system property that you can see at the top of the screen there. You create an email reader job, and you're able to do parallel email account processing. So sort of tied in with the last one. Again, I don't have a specific use case for this one yet, but it's one of those things that I'd be looking at, reading more docs and finding out if it's something I can use. Now, I mentioned the email client, that little envelope icon that's at the top of the incident form, and people realize, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't work so well because it's systematically, it's configured for the entire system. And I may want different properties on there for customer service management for my external customers versus IT service management for my internal customers versus HR or whatever your applications are. You can now configure this thing a lot more. It's very, very configurable. You can configure per table. You can use recipient qualifiers for the recipient autocomplete. You can whitelist and blacklist domains. Say, hey, I'm not allowing any Yahoo addresses in here. You can set the from address on the email client dynamically based on, say, the country of the incident caller. So you could have it go out and say, this is from Service Desk UK for my UK users, or Japan for my Japan users. The other thing that the notifications team has done is made the configuration of the security settings a little simpler. Instead of 2 checkboxes and remembering if one of these is on, it's that way, and if 2 of these are on, it's that way, we changed it to a drop-down list. And the settings do carry over, so you don't need to go check that out. Makes it easier to understand, less confusing to configure. All right, I am looking at the clock and noticing that I got a lot of stuff left to zip through. So automated test framework, a quick reminder, automated test framework is a way for you to define functional tests on the platform and run them over and over again for the value of quality releases and faster upgrades. Those are the two main things. We've added a number of things. One is the Smart Test Suite Organizer, so you can set up these condition-based rules and group them together, spend less time managing your tests and what suites they go into, and spend more time developing and running tests. So you could use a prefix, for example, and say, these are all of my CSM tests, or these are all of my whatever you want to do based on those conditions, and it will group them together into an organizer. We also have what we're calling ATF Quick Starts. And I remember way back when sorry about that, apparently I have a meeting coming up at some point. Way back when ATF first came out, the intent was, we will supply you with sample tests. That day has arrived with Madrid for ITSM and customer service management and the bullet items you see there on the left. They do use demo data, so you will have to go in and configure them. The nice thing is, much like service portal widgets, you copy them. Oops, I kind of skipped here. When you copy them and modify them, it maybe would come out with a new one in New York that says, hey, we updated the incident, create incident test. It will tell you, this has been updated. Would you like to import the new one? Would you like to compare? What do you want to do with that? So kind of like a smart updater for your tests. You know where you stand in terms of, hey, there's a new test. Maybe I want to even go get that. The quick starts are giving you a template to follow. They are based on out-of-box implementation, so as you configure and change your processes, hopefully not too far from the norm, your upgrades will get faster using ATF. We've also come up with parameterized tests, which I also love, that you don't need to create one test for this persona and one test for that persona, and you can create data sets that get applied to that. We need a new video. We need to do another TechNow on ATF soon. Virtual Agent has received some updates. It came out in London. This is our chatbot framework, and we've added the ability to, let me get down to my notes, allows you to type a start topic rather than just throwing up a menu that says, show me everything. If the phrase matches exactly, the topic is started. So you could have create new incident. And if that's how the topic is, that's how it will display it. If it's close, it confirms and goes, all right, do you want to start this topic or not? We've also, if you watched our virtual agent video back in October, there are points where scripting was required in the initial release in London. I'm happy to say we have added a condition builder in many of these places you see on the left-hand side to reduce the need for coding. Makes it a lot easier for no coders to build a virtual agent chat. We've also added an integration with Facebook Workplace and added some enhancements on MS Teams and Slack for better calendars, card layouts, buttons. The experience is a lot nicer for those. So Virtual Agent has a nice refresh. When it comes to Service Portal, we've upgraded the default branding, of course, because now we're a green company. Yeah, the whole logo.
Right.
This is also WCAG AA compliant, so your accessible users will be happy as well. You're going, okay, so it starts out as green. You can always change it. We've also added multi-factor authentication, very easy to configure for Service Portal. I know some of the people that have asked about this. They go, hey, I log into our customer service portal, hi.servicenow.com, with multi-factor authentication. I do every day, seems like. And how do you do that? Well, easy to configure now using that. And the long-awaited multi-knowledge base, multi-catalog support is now available. Just giving you, I apologize for some of these screenshots. They are a bit grainy. I had to take what I got, but you can see there's a difference in pre-Madrid on the left and Madrid on the right, where you can see the actual knowledge bases and catalogs, and the catalog category pages shown there. So you can easily filter those down when you search. You can also filter them that way. So hooray. I can hear the resounding echo across the globe as people go, finally.
Yeah. That's great.
But wait, there's more. This is everything that I couldn't figure out where else it goes. It didn't have a major header. We have antivirus protection now. If you upload a new file or download an existing file, it will do an antivirus check on that. And if it is found to have a virus, it will quarantine that. If you try to download it, it will say, oh, sorry, file's not available. If you try to upload it, it will it will throw it into a quarantine. The file types are listed on this slide. I'm not going to read them all off. The default property is for 100 megabytes. You can obviously change that as needed. So it's active by default on your instance. You can exclude tables if you want to say, hey, don't scan. Obviously, you do want to scan this as attachment table, but it takes care of that for you. We've also added a couple things to Edge encryption. You can now do date and date time field encryption, and it does have proxy authentication. So if you're using Edge encryption, you know that you have a proxy on your site that handles all of the keys, the key stores, and everything from that point to the instance, even the fields in the database are encrypted. So there's authentication. At first I thought this was like the validation on a mid-server. If you watched last month's mid-server, you have to know that you got validated. So not only does the instance say, hey, someone connected to me, it says, I allow you to connect. This is different. This is actual authentication that goes across in the header to authenticate the transactions that go back and forth. Guided Tour Designer has been simplified. We no longer have the 4 callouts at the top because people were trying to put a top callout at the top of a page, and it goes, it doesn't fit here. Less frustrating experience now with the simplified callout creation. It will take its best guess at where it should go. If you've got a field at the top of the form and it doesn't fit, it will place it on the bottom or the right or the left, and you can always move it. So a single drag and drop action, less struggling there. It also is now a first-class citizen on the application menus. Guided Tour Designer is no longer buried under embedded help. It
Very nice.
is its own thing. Yeah, I like that as well. It's like, yay, guided tour. Another one of my favorite features goes along with the best practices. So previously what we told you about imports is if you've got a lot of records, like 100,000 or a million records, break that into smaller chunks, and you had to know where to chunk it and to upload these in the right order, and it was very manual intensive. That was done for performance reasons because an import of 100,000 records took longer than 10 imports of 10,000 records. If that math makes any sense, I don't know why it would, but apparently there's something going on in memory and spooling and streaming and crazy stuff like that. There is now a checkbox on the screen that you see here, a scheduled data import, that says, do this as a concurrent import. So there is a periodic poller. You go, well, how does that work, Chuck? It breaks the import, and it does, by default, a round-robin style into several import sets at the same time. You know, well, what happens if I have duplicate data and my coalesce it says which one is the authoritative record, which one should be inserted, which room should be updated. That's all done behind the scenes very, very reliably with locks. I'm just going to say it locks the records some way, somehow. It picks them up from the queue. If you want to see how they're doing, you can obviously go to the concurrent import set jobs, click into that. You will see the import sets that make up that concurrent import set in the related list like this. So easy to drill in. It's sort of a superset of import sets. So if that makes any sense, I just kind of made that thing up. We also have a unified application experience. The plugin page was a nice list. And if you go to System Definition Plugins, you will be directed to this page, which has all the plugins, stuff from the store. It's got your app repo files. If you're, say, on production installing something from dev or test, those show up here. One place to get all this information, and it has wonderful details about, is this paid or is this free? Does it include demo data? You click install, and it's done. So the first time you go to System Definition Plugins, it will steer you here and throw up a message that says, if you really want to get to the plugins list, you can still click this link at the top of the screen, or if you're hardcore like some of you are, you can do v_plugin.list in the application navigator filter, and away you go. I still do that from time to time, but I am getting more and more attuned, appreciative, I don't know what the right word is, for this
Actually,
screen.
I will say that this screen makes it easy to go look up or find plugins rather than the regular table. But yeah, because not only do you have a navigator filter on the side there, but the search is real time. It's really fast.
And one button to go to the store. Very easy.
One thing that threw me on this one, though, was looking for my own applications. In here, we've got a separate navigation item for my company applications. So, I was expecting.
You are correct.
That was a little bit odd to have to look there.
You are correct. It's same UI, but it's almost like a filtered list on that same thing.
Right.
The last thing I've got is the REST API Explorer, one of my favorite debugging tools for incoming REST APIs, now has an execution time. That arrow is a little off, but close enough. So if somebody says, why is this REST API taking so long? You can go, well, I tested it. It took 253 milliseconds. If it's taking 4 seconds, you may want to look for those other 3.5 seconds or 3.768 seconds, whatever it is, on your end for what's happening. It could be latency in the network. It could be processing power on the requester side. It could be a lot of things, but this gives you some insight as to how long it actually takes to do a record update or scripted REST API or whatever. So look for that in the REST API Explorer in Madrid. Whew. We have about 5 minutes. So let me quickly buzz through our closing. The doc site has a lot of this information. The Madrid documentation is all up and online as of early availability, end of January. Community, if you've got questions, a wonderful place to reach out to subject matter experts and get those questions. Don't forget, if you do have a question in the community, to put what instance you're working on. A lot of times it's, I can't reproduce that in Madrid. What release are you using? I'm using Jakarta. Okay, that might make a difference. Let me go test that out. Developer.servicenow.com, of course, get your free personal developer instance, as Kreg said. Test some of these things out. Madrid instances are available prior to general availability. They are available right now on developer.servicenow.com. You can upgrade an existing instance or you can claim a new one if you don't already have one. Learning plans, API docs, all that good stuff over there. We also, as I mentioned, have been doing this for 6 years now and have a lot of history in there of over 60 episodes of TechNow. So I invite you to go look at that bit.ly link and find out what's out there. And, of course, the Success Center. If we didn't get to your questions, I'm going to try and get a few more in here in the last couple of minutes. If we don't get to them, look for them on the community. There will be a post with this episode. And with that, do we have any additional Q&A?
Well, there is a lot of Q&A, but yes, go ahead, Stacey.
I was going to say one that might be a very quick one to answer right now regarding virus scanning. Is that on by default? Can you opt out of virus scanning? Do you have any specifics on that?
And somebody did ask about edge encryption and virus scanning.
If you encrypt a file, obviously you're not going to be able to virus scan. It is on by default. I'm answering these in reverse order. I must have a stack for a brain. It is on by default, and as I understand, you can disable it with property. So I haven't looked for that specifically, so I don't know exactly what that property name is, but that is my understanding. If I'm wrong, I'll make a correction on the community. Any other that are high on the list that we got to get in the last 60 seconds? I don't want to keep people later than they need to be.
I'm just I tried to flag some, but I guess I wasn't doing a very good job of some of them. No, I think that was the big thing, and a lot of people are asking about Agent Workspace and whatnot. So that's a popular one in the Q&A.
Oh, I imagine it is.
Yeah.
That's a hot topic. That's like the service portal of a couple of years ago. All right. With that, yeah. I thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Kreg and Stacey, for keeping an eye on the Q&A as we go through this. And I am really, really looking forward to the next video where we dig into the mobile designer and April, and see you all at Knowledge, where we can play ServiceNow Jeopardy on ServiceNow. With that, I am done. Take care.
All right.
Bye.